So, ladies and gentlemen, on paper, it seemed like a good plot, where you have Sting, who was hot at the time, playing the Doctor Frankenstein, Jennifer Beals as his creation, and the great Geraldine Page as one of the supporting cast. U.S. British co-production seemed again to be good on paper, but one of the biggest bombs of 1985. We're going to talk about The Bride. Now, this gothic romance film was directed by Frank Rodham and starred Sting, Jennifer Beals, Geraldine Page, and the great Clancy Brown. Based on Mary Shelley's 1818 novel Frankenstein, or the modern Prometheus, the film show follows Baron Charles Frankenstein, who creates a woman, Eva, while his original monster, believed to have been killed in a lab accident, escapes into the country. The film was an international co-production between the UK and the US, released theatrically on August 16, 1985 by Columbia, to numerous negative reviews from critics. In my area of Canada, it wasn't even shown in theaters. It was a large commercial failure, grossing only $3.6 million based on a $13 million budget. Now, in this one, Baron Frankenstein, Dr. Zalus, and Frankenstein assistant Paulus attempt to create a female mate, Eva, for his creation. The team of scientists succeed in creating her, who is physically identical to a human and lacking deformities of the monster. As such, she is revolted by the monster and rejects him. A confrontation between the monster and Frankenstein regarding Eva leads the monster to fly into a rage and destroy the lab. Frankenstein, believing the monster has died, flees with Eva back to Castle Frankenstein. There he falls in love with her, and with the help of her friend Charles and housekeeper Mrs. Bowen, educate her with the goal of making her a perfect human mate. The monster, having survived, wanders into the countryside where he befriends a dwarf played by David Rappaport called Ronaldo. As you learn more about one another, Ronaldo eventually gives the monster more humanity, but gracing him with the name Victor, he will win. The men travel by foot through Europe, eventually arriving in Budapest, where they become involved with a circus owner named Magar, who hires them despite his dislike for Ronaldo. Meanwhile, as Eva acquires language and develops further cognizance, she begins to question her origin, and while visiting a decrepit mausoleum with Baron Charles, tells him she wishes to go home. Now, the Baron has Eva accompany him to a formal party held by a countess, where he introduces her. Eva is initially well-spoken and formal, oppressing the countess, Captain Joseph Schowden, and other guests, but becomes agitated when a cat enters the room. Having no knowledge of the animal, Eva begins to scream at it, embarrassing the Baron. Several days later, while riding a horse near the castle, Eva is approached by Joseph, who attempts to romance her. Joseph informs Eva that the Baron was thrown out of university while studying medicine. She begins to question the Baron and his intentions. Meanwhile, during a trapeze performance with the circus, Ronaldo was fatally injured in a fall. Victor is immediately heartbroken at the loss of his friend, a feeling that Eva apparently feels. As Victor mourns, Eva suddenly feels a great sense of loss and cries in her room, hinting at some kind of psychic connection between the two. Victor learns that the circus performer Bella deliberately tampered with Ronaldo's harness, causing the fall. He flies into a rage, flipping Magar's caravan over before murdering Bella. Victor returns to the castle and finds Eva outside in the grounds. Eva mistakes him for a vagrant, not recognizing him. Later, a mob from the circus arrives in the village in search of Victor and shackle him to a wall. Meanwhile, Eva disappears from the castle. The Baron inquires of her whereabouts, and Mrs. Bowen reluctantly reveals that she's run away with Joseph. The Baron locates the two lovers. Much to Eva's shock, Joseph reveals he doesn't care much or all about Eva and walks away from her, not looking back. The Baron drags to find Eva back to the castle. During a verbal battle, the Baron finally reveals to Eva how she created her, using parts of corpses and bringing her to life by an electrical charge. This information mortifies Eva. His possessive nature shows as he demands he'll take Eva as his, whether she wants to or not. Though Eva tries to keep him away from her, she's virtually trapped and feels helpless. Victor senses her fear and desperation. He breaks free from his shackles and flees by horse to Castle Frankenstein. Now, back in the castle, the Baron fights Eva, a fight she loses. Before the Baron can force himself on Eva, Victor confronts him. Very good scenes by Clancy Brown, by the way. A fight ensues, and Victor is chased to the top of the lab, where he throws the Baron to his death. In the castle, Victor returns to the sleeping Eva, and when she awakens, he turns to leave. Eva asks him to stay, and he introduces himself to her with his name. She tells him the meaning of his name, which pleases him. She asks if he knows who made him, and reveals that it was the Baron. Reunited, they head off to Venice to fulfill Ronaldo's dream. Now, Alexei Sayle actually plays Magar, with the very, very dapper Quentin Crisp as Dr. Zalus, a young Carrie Elwes as Captain Joseph Schoden. Phil Daniels plays Bella, and again, Varushka von Lindorf, Dad Varushka, plays the Countess. Now, Frankenstein's full name in the film is Baron Charles Frankenstein. Unlike Mary Shelley's Victor Frankenstein, or the classic Universal Studios movie Henry Frankenstein, the dwarf in the film is named Ronaldo, after the name of blacklisted Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein screenwriter Frederick Ronaldo, who also wrote the scripts for several Universal films, including Abbott Costello Meet the Invisible Man, Hold That Ghost, The Black Cat, and The Invisible Woman. Now, principal photography of The Bride began on June 6, 1984 at Lee International Shepperton Studios in England to much fanfare, a lot of media publicity. Location filming took place in France. Shooting and completed in December 1984, a long shoot. Some scenes were shot amidst the statuary at the Gardens of Balmazzo in Lazio, Italy. Now, Columbia released the film theatrically in North America on August 16, 1985, with only $3.6 million at the box office. It premiered in November in the UK, premiering in London. The film earned numerous negative reviews from critics and holds a 27% rating on Rotten Tomatoes based on 15 reviews. Now, a very interesting thing is one of the last movies to be released on Betamax. It was released on VHS and Betamax from RCA Columbia Pictures in 1986 and on DVD by Columbia TriStar Home Entertainment in 2001. Now, Screen Factory released the film on Blu-ray on September 25th in 2018, featuring an audio commentary by Frank Rodham, as well as interviews with Rodham and Clancy Brown. Now, I wouldn't say it was the worst movie I've ever seen, but it just came across like, are you having this movie because Sting is in it? Because Sting had already been in Quadrophenia. Like I said, he was in Dune. And the idea about Clancy Brown, too, coming up with Highlander right around the corner. So, ladies and gentlemen, sometimes a great notion. Like I said, Rappaport, great actor. Geraldine Page. You had a whole bunch of good British actors. Phil Daniels from Quadrophenia. Varushka, again, a beautiful, luminous actress. But it's, the idea about, like, Sting, he was in Quadrophenia as well, which is kind of weird. He was on the cusp of kind of movie stardom, but he never really hit it, did he? Like I said, Dune was a bomb, and even though he had a good character. But Sting is basically, you're seeing Sting. This is like, if you had John Lennon in this type of movie, you would see John Lennon, you don't see Sting. But for what it is, like I said, that was part of, like, the retelling of the tales of horror movies of the 1980s. And like I said, who's going to sue you if you do Frankenstein? And later on, you had the De Niro movie with Kenneth Branagh. So it was every few years you get a retelling. So, ladies and gentlemen, you can find it on the DVD. Check it out. Like I said, there's some good scenes. Anything with Clancy Brown is pretty good. But Jennifer Beals has a romantic interest. If let's say you would have got Helen Mirren, that would have made a lot more sense, because Helen got a body, Jennifer Beals got a body like a chicken. There's nothing there, as we like to say. Have a good one, ladies and gentlemen, and don't forget, keep your stick in the ice. Bye.